1, he's guilty. This says that Bryan Kohberger's prosecutor addresses the motive for the Idaho murders after the plea deal. 2, he's not guilty.
The plea deal didn't settle the truth, it buried it.
3, guilty, but many questions are unanswered.
This isn't just a case with reasonable doubt, it's a masterclass in prosecutorial sleight of hand.
4, not guilty, but something's fishy. Bryan Kohberger's case is pretty much over with the exception of the sentencing. He's pled guilty. We want you, our viewers, to vote.
What are they voting on?
What are they voting on? As an attorney, I have to accept the actions in the court where the defendant, Bryan Kohberger, said, yes, he understood. Yes, he was acting freely and voluntarily. And yes, he's guilty because he is guilty. But wait a minute. I'm attorney Andrew Myers on this edition of About the Law. Joining me is Kelsey. Hey, Kelsey, what's up?
What's up?
So the case is over, right?
It is.
Really?
Yay.
Really?
I don't think so.
There are so many questions on our viewers. Overwhelmingly, our viewers just are not really accepting what happened in the Bryan Kohberger case. So we want our viewer, you asked me, what are they voting on? We want you to go down in the comments section and type in a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. 1, he's guilty. 2, he's not guilty. 3, guilty, but many questions are unanswered. 4, not guilty, but something's fishy. Does that make sense to you, Kelsey?
It does.
Okay. And so what are the questions? What are the questions? We went over this in a previous episode. You know, there's so many questions, so we just boiled it down to these top 5. Where's the knife? Where are the clothes he wore that night? Dylan and Bethany's actions during the 8-hour delay. The motive. If Bryan Kohberger parked behind 1122, how could the DoorDash driver MM have seen him if she parked out front? And here's the bonus, number 6. What was Bethany's exculpatory evidence? Remember that they had an affidavit in which they said Bethany had exculpatory evidence, but we never found out what that evidence was?
Yes.
What do you think it is?
It must be something important.
Thank you. Okay, so even the news media is kind of confused about this. We found an article this week in E-News, which of course, you know, it has to be true if it's in E-News, right? That said, we know what the motive is. We know what the motive is. And I read the article and the motive is not in the article. Bryan Kohberger prosecutor addresses motive for Idaho murders after plea deal. Really? So I saw this article and I thought, that's pretty exciting. Somebody knows what the motive is. This is E-News. So now the headline is Bryan Kohberger prosecutor addresses motive for Idaho murders plea deal. Okay, that's fine. So let's take a look at what the article actually says. The question as to why Bryan Kohberger killed 4 Idaho college students remains unanswered. Then they give the background about how he pleaded guilty on July 2nd to willfully, deliberately, you know, with respect to Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Kernodle's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin. Less than 2 months before he was scheduled to go to trial, Kohberger, as we all know, agreed to a deal that will send him to prison for the rest of his life in exchange for avoiding the possibility of a death sentence. After Kohberger's confession, according to People, Latah County Prosecutor Bill Thompson detailed the evidence the state would have presented should the case have gone to trial. Thompson said cell tower records showed that from July 9th, 2022 to November 7th, 2022, Kohberger's phone pinged a tower near the off-campus house, where the victims were killed 23 times. The signals were registered between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. You know, people always make that as though it's something weird. I had a night job one time. I had a job at a radio station, tending the transmitter. And I didn't get out of that job until 12, 1 o'clock, depending when I could get the logs done. So that was my time. After 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, I was out driving around. Now, I wasn't doing anything nefarious. That's just when I got off the job. Have you ever, driven around late at night?
Yeah, and people think that if it's past curfew time, then you're out doing something suspicious.
Yeah, and it's just not true. So, and a lot of people, I found when I had that job, a lot of people were out driving around. I was in a town in Massachusetts, a city in Massachusetts, and I would go to the store, and they were open, the 24-hour store, and there were people in there shopping, and it's not that weird. So a lot of things about this case are just, they're trying to shade it a certain way. So Thompson could not say what Kohberger did during that time or if he had contact with any of the 4 victims before breaking into the house and stabbing them to death. Rather, the prosecutor said his office could not connect Kohberger to the victims and therefore did not offer a theory on the motive. So now, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Go back up to the top. Bryan Kohberger, prosecutor, addresses motive for Idaho murders after plea deal. But then you go down here and it says that the prosecutor said his office could not connect Kohberger to the victims and therefore did not offer a theory on the motive for the quadruple murder. Wait a minute. So the article has a headline that just contradicts what's in the article. And, we could go on, but that's the theme of this article. Don't you find that a little bit shady?
I do. I find this whole case shady.
We do not have evidence that he had direct contact with the home, Thompson said in court, per people, but we can put his phone in that area at those times. The prosecutor also said, per the Idaho Statesman, that the state would not represent that Kohberger intended to commit all of the M's that he did that night. But we know that is what resulted. So now, wait a minute. So now this is E! News quoting People and E! News quoting Idaho Statesman. And I know what happened. They read these articles and they kind of mishmashed them together. And then they added that headline that the prosecutor revealed the motive when he didn't. Now we could read all the way down to the bottom of this. And I'll put the link to this article down in the description area down below. But it's mostly all background.
They're just rambling.
Yeah. And I'm not going to waste my time, your time, and the viewers' times. But folks, you can go read this article. And there are the 4 victims, of course. And there's nothing at all about the motive. So, they put the headline up at the top and it just, they call us clickbait, but you know what? It's really not clickbait.
That's clickbait.
If you answer the question. But this says that Bryan Kohberger's prosecutor addresses the motive for the Idaho murders after the plea deal, but he specifically says he didn't have the motive. So, all right. Okay. People say journalism is going down the toilet. And I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I'm painting with a broad brush. So, again, here is that article. We will put it down in the comments section. But more importantly, for our viewers to know that these are the questions that remain unanswered. And in my view, they remain unanswered, mostly the motive. So again, we want people to vote. 1, he's guilty. 2, he's not guilty. 3, guilty, but many questions remain unanswered. 4, not guilty. Something's fishy. So I would like our viewers to vote and answer that. And speaking of our viewers, we have 10 comments and a bonus this week, as is often the case. And for number 10, going backwards, for number 10, we have Wheezy Lynn. I also wonder if Bryan just took the plea to buy time and get the DP off the table while he works to prove his innocence. What? Why would he stand up in court and say he was guilty just to prove
his innocence? What?
That makes no sense to me. I know what people are saying. I know exactly what people are going to say down in the comments, that Mr. Myers, you're crazy, because one of the things that could overturn this plea deal is if he actually does find evidence that he is innocent and he didn't do it. All right, I understand that comment, but again, it makes no sense to me. Maybe he knows he can prove it, but just didn't have enough time before trial. And I wonder if Ann will keep working on his case or if he'll hire a PI. The cops and prosecution definitely did some shady stuff, and I think they're scared of it all coming out. I still don't know if Bryan is the one who did the crimes, but I do know that something isn't right. Okay.
Number 9, unlocked evidence. This isn't just a case with reasonable doubt. It's a masterclass in prosecutorial sleight of hand. The plea deal didn't settle the truth. It buried it. All of this nonsense about his fascination with serial killers. The guy studied criminology. Kohberger studies killers like a lab tech studies viruses, not to become one, but to understand how they spread. This absolutely smells fishy. And for a case this high profile, too many institutional players are suddenly silent or skittish. It's not the guilt or innocence that's raising eyebrows. It's the choreography.
Yeah, that's a good comment. It's not the guilt or innocence, but just the way the whole case is played.
The way the whole case is playing out.
Number 8, Paula and 33. Yes, it's fishy. I agree, Attorney Myers. The prosecution had a very weak case, as if they had lots of evidence. No way they'd offer him a plea deal. They didn't have the truth on their side.
Number 7, Michelle Bastone. No way one person could kill 4 people within that time frame unless he had super strength. I do not believe it.
Isn't Bastone a bad word in Italian? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I do believe that there were other people just because of the time frame.
I've always said that. We did 2 episodes with other creators who collaborated with us, in which we said there's no way he did this alone. No. There's no way. I'll never believe it. I know I get comments down below, but I'll never believe that one person did all this in the timeline that's been given to us by the prosecution. Oh, look at this, Kelsey. Number 6, Concur 450 says, Kelsey is doing a great job and is very likable. Then we have Catherine O'Coker. Kelsey is adorable, heart. Is she a member in the Myers family? I notice you two always have the same background. No, we're not a member of the same family. Nope. We now work together. We collaborate together, but she's not a member of the family. But
thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. She has the same background because we're building a new studio, and we had those Mexican blankets in the background, and those were temporary. Yeah, I'll say that.
And we got some curtains. It's a work in progress, but it's coming a long way.
Yeah, this is a work in progress, folks. So hang in with us, please. 5, Seb. Your odds. I'm sorry.
Number 5, Seb Midnight. I have a coworker who has been very skeptical every time I brought up holes in the state's case. After the plea deal, they're very upset about holes in the state's case. I think a lot of people took for granted that there was more evidence that would come out at trial, and included that presumed evidence in their assignment of the state's case. Now that we're not getting it at a trial, people are looking at what evidence is left and are starting to see the holes.
Yeah, people have seen holes all the way through, but with the abrupt, sudden nature of the plea, it really was like a train wreck. It's like a train that's going, 150 miles an hour, and all of a sudden it hit a cement wall. 4, Erica Y9S9H. With over 50% of DP cases overturned in the U.S. and guaranteed appeals, why would anyone facing capital punishment choose to plead guilty? Good question. I should have put that on the list.
Number 4, deep state thrombosis. I have a lot of questions myself about this entire case. What's something I genuinely think is true? People have heard the case and what they really want to hear. is the story. They want to know why, how, if he knew them, see the autopsies, all the grisly details. Even then, because of the investigation and the way things unfolded, I don't think this would have the resolution people want it to have. There will always be more to the story.
And as we pointed out in our previous episode, a lot of questions unanswered, and these things may well dribble out drip by drop as time goes on. Catherine Ramsland has stated her intent and hope to study Mr. Kohberger, her former student.
See, and that's where I stand too, because I want to know from point A to point B and everything in between.
I think we all do. And I know some other attorneys out there have said, yeah, he's guilty. He pled guilty. The judge did a great job asking him whether it was a knowing, willful decision that he made, and nobody pressured him. And I know other attorneys out there have said, well, that's that. He said he's guilty in court, so he's guilty.
But I just want to know what went through his brain.
Okay. That's all I'm going to say. We'll develop this more as time goes on. Number 3, great video, Andrew. Why did they put out a false PCA? Why the gag order? Could Bryan Kohberger have been threatened? Why were police on the stand not telling the truth? Good questions all.
Number 2, keyboard investigator. I was one of the ones who hasn't been sure if Bryan committed these murders, but have no doubt with him taking the plea deal. I think Ann Taylor learned something that made her realize Bryan committed these murders, and it could have been Bryan confessed to her, or perhaps Cyree got all the records he needed, and it proved Bryan was at 1122 King Road, especially with him disappearing from this case. Ellie had an eyewitness, Molly McMichael, the DoorDash person, saw him.
I don't know. Did she really? I mean, she said she was friends with William Thompson, and the DoorDash driver would have parked by the front door, and the prosecution says, and it's fairly clear and obvious that if he was the suspect, would have parked behind 1122 and gone down the hill from behind the property and gone in the sliding glass door that's in the back. So I don't know. That's one of many, many, many questions. And our number 1 comment in this episode, Bethany and Dylan's bizarre actions the morning of the crime need some explanation. If you are ever going to put an end to the wild speculation, even their parents, who were contacted early that morning by Bethany and Dylan, refused to contact the police. Mr. Myers, give me any plausible explanation. Yes, I totally believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty, but someone else may have been involved. Well, that's what I said. Mr. Myers can't give you a plausible explanation if you're asking me what happened in that 8-hour delay. I have stated my opinion, which has been soundly denied. My opinion was a party house is a synonym for a drug house, and that they had to clear drugs out of the place. That's my answer. I know a lot of people resoundingly, rejected my view. But why else would they have waited 8 hours? Do you have any idea? What's your theory? Do you have a theory?
My theory is similar to yours, as a party house being like a drug house. They had to get rid of some type of evidence before they could even call.
And a lot of people have said that. I think it's reasonable that we both have that view. We always have to remember that this Idaho 4 case is about the 4 victims and their families, and the families will, in fact, have an opportunity to make their statements at the sentencing hearing currently scheduled for July 23rd, coming up pretty quickly as we record this episode. And this case is about Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle appearing in those photos, in the best context in their life. But now let's go back to the voting. And Kelsey, do you want to read the options that we want our
So comment below and vote if 1, you think he's guilty, 2, he's not guilty, 3, he's guilty but many questions unanswered, or 4, not guilty and something's fishy.
And I think we know, and again, during this whole case, as attorney, I said we are going to presume and allow him the constitutional protection to presume Mr. Kohberger innocent until found guilty. commenters have jumped all over me and called me a pro-burger. No, I'm not a pro-burger. I just, I keep an open mind. I've always kept an open mind on this and every other case that the prosecution, in fact, is, required to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. And they never did it, but they got an admission. So that lets them off the hook. So as Kelsey just told us, 1, please vote down below. 1, he's guilty. 2, he's not guilty. 3, guilty, but many questions unanswered. 4, not guilty. Something's fishy. So if you're like the blonde lady holding a fish there in the picture, we often used to ask people if they stayed with us through the whole episode to drop us an emoji, and we would recommend the emoji. So unless you have any other ideas, I would suggest that if people have stayed with us through the whole episode, put a fish emoji. Give us a fish emoji and vote, please. Kelsey, your closing thoughts.
I think he's guilty, but there's many questions still unanswered. I think he did do it, but he had some help, and there's somebody out there just living freely right now.
So you're voting 3.
Yes.
I guess I have to agree with you. I guess I have to agree with me. I should have put a 5th category because, I am a procrastinator. You don't know me that well. I do procrastinate a lot. I can't make up my mind a lot of times. I have to ruminate a lot. And so I don't know if I'm convinced that he's guilty. I don't know. I mean, I would vote 3, I guess, but I don't know. It's so hard, really to come to a final conclusion here. It's really so hard, going over everything that we've had to go through in this case, and there again are the unanswered questions. And this is only the top 5 and a bonus. I mean, there's so many as our commenters pointed out. Where is the knife? Did he throw it in one of those rivers that William Thompson mentioned in his statement of facts? Where are the clothes that he wore that night? Was that in that package or thing that looked like it might have been a vacuum that Dylan Mortensen mentioned? Dylan and Bethany's, we just talked about this. Dylan and Bethany's actions during the 8-hour delay between the time the crimes were alleged to have occurred and when 911 was called. To me, that's the biggest question. That's the biggest question. If you know, I've never been in that position, so I'm disqualified by some of our commenters from even having an opinion. But my opinion is, if somebody is lying on the floor as Xana was seen by Dylan, don't you go over and ask her, "Hey, kid, how are you?" Or, "Hey, kid, you passed out. Let me lift you back up on your bed." Or, "Hey, don't you do something?"
I would.
If Bryan Kohberger parked behind 1122, how could DoorDash driver MM have seen him? That's Molly if she parked out front. And this is my biggest question. Motive is huge. Motive is absolutely huge. And I know I said the 8-hour delay is my number 1 question, but my number 1A question is, what was Bethany's exculpatory evidence? Apparently, Ann Taylor had an investigator by the name of Richard Batanti, who has been used by defense attorneys, and he traveled down south to where Bethany had moved, and he took an affidavit which is sealed and protected and not presented, and we don't know what it says. But Batanti himself did an affidavit and said Bethany has information that is exculpatory. So I don't know. So those are my closing thoughts. Again, we'll show the slide one more time. Please vote. Go down below. Vote. He's guilty. That's number 1. Number 2, he's not guilty. Number 3, guilty, but many questions unanswered. Number 4, not guilty, but something is fishy. So, all right, Kelsey, you had some nice thoughts that people had about you.
I did.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, guys.
Yeah. Because people say not nice things about me. People don't like. If you're an attorney, how can you think this or how can you think that? I get that all the time.
Being out in the public eye, it's rough. You get the nice people, you get the mean people. You try to ignore the mean people, but we appreciate the nice ones.
As long as 95% of our comments are positive, and I would say 95% of our comments are positive, there's always that other 5 or 10%. They're always there. So in any event, dear viewers, have a great weekend. Time to go to the grocery store.
Whether you are in the grocery store, the gas station, or anywhere else, please remember to be kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. And the same goes for our comments section. We want you to comment, but be nice, be kind, be positive if you can. And thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good one.
Holy moly, we made it. And then recording. 1, he's guilty. This says that Bryan Kohberger's prosecutor addresses the motive for the Idaho murders after the plea deal. 2, he's not guilty.
The plea deal didn't settle the truth. It buried it.
3, guilty, but many questions are unanswered.
This isn't just a case with reasonable doubt. It's a masterclass in prosecutorial sleight of hand.
4, not guilty, but something's fishy.